but several years ago he was part of the heavyweight factory program in Florida. Tyler played professional football, and they recruited a number of football players thinking that these are the best big men as far as athletes in the country. And Tyler did quite well at it. He trained for about a year down there and used his wrestling background to get into MMA instead of pursuing boxing.
Tyler King, an NFL veteran, played 4 years in the National Football League after being a standout defensive end at the University of Connecticut. When you're used to dealing with big offensive linemen in the Big East, not much should intimidate you. He seems like a good fit for combat sports.
Tyler is a very confident guy. He has fought on 4 or 5 MMA shows that I promoted, and confident, tough guy, terrific natural athlete. Tall, rangy guy. He looks like a slim guy. He's not. Tyler is. What did Tyler weigh today? About 240, 250?
240.
Yeah, and he's 6'5" and very, very strong.
His opponent, Boban Simic's lone professional boxing match was a TKO over Caleb Grummett, who I already mentioned is an MMA practitioner himself. The name Caleb Grummett might be familiar to some hardcore boxing fans, as he gave an excellent fight to a top-ranked fighter by the name of Tyler Zibikowski, who himself was an NFL football player who was trying out boxing during the NFL lockout, but a guy who had a substantial amateur background fighting in the Chicago Golden Gloves.
Should be an interesting one. Anytime you have a couple of heavyweights, particularly guys with an MMA background, and they're just really tough, strong guys, you know it's not going to be a very long fight. Don't blink. I expect this is probably going to be a one-rounder.
I recall before boxing world champion James Toney took on UFC legend Randy Couture in what was his first foray and perhaps only foray into mixed martial arts here in Massachusetts in 2010. And one thing Randy Couture said to me that I never considered before, one difference between boxing and MMA that's really a substantial difference is boxers can plant their feet a little more because they wear shoes.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very true. It's an interesting transition.
We'll listen in to our ring announcer, John Vina.
Thanks. Casey.
Runs in Tyler King's family. His father, Tyler King, was a standout member of the New England Patriots in the 1970s, who famously intercepted Hall of Famer Joe Namath. His son, Tyler, trying to make a name for himself and has done so regionally in mixed martial arts. Let's see how he fares in boxing. Like we said earlier, he's here for the experience, but he's got an adequate foe in front of him, a guy who should be at a similar skill level in the MMA practitioner who dabbles in boxing, Boban Simic. Tyler King wearing the camouflage trunks, Simic wearing the black trunks with the white trim. We should note that Tyler King has sparred in preparation for this fight with respected local heavyweights Jesse Barboza and Julian Pollard. He's taken this seriously.
Tyler, right off the bat, the bigger, taller guy should really kind of keep this on the outside. But again, as an MMA guy, they want to get inside and bang. Good body shot by Simic. Got Tyler King's attention right there. Simic actually doing the right thing, going to the body against a big, tall, rangy guy.
Referee Eddie Claudio warns both fighters about holding. It looked like Boban Simic wanted to shoot for a single for a moment.
I always kind of wonder when I to see MMA guys make the transition to boxing if somebody's going to take somebody down. I haven't seen it yet, but
there is an account of a local MMA fighter competing in a boxing match and kneeing his opponent in the face. That would be Ralph Johnson, someone who you're familiar with, local MMA practitioner who dabbles in the sport of boxing, kneed his opponent in the face in the heat of the moment. Probably didn't know where it was.
Of course, knowing Ralph personally, kneeing somebody in the face could very well happen in church.
Round one of a scheduled four-rounder heavyweights, Boban Simic and Tyler King.
Simic landing a little bit in there. One of the things about the MMA fighters that I have found, and I've seen several of them try to make the transition to boxing, is when they get hit, they don't react as well as boxers because they're not used to getting hit clean all the time.
Now, as expected, neither fighter the most scientific or technical boxer in the world. A spirited, sometimes ugly brawl, but both fighters trying to do their best to keep it clean, as referee Eddie Claudio consistently discusses with them that they should keep it clean and not hold. It's just in their DNA, coming from their MMA background, to hold, though.
Tyler falling in a little bit with that right hand, and Simic is trying to time him a little bit. I don't know if it's intentional or just his reaction, but as Tyler kind of paused with the jab and falls in with the right hand, he's very, very squared up and open, and Simic is kind of throwing a right hand at the same time. If he catches him leaning in like that, you get the momentum of two big men going against each other. Somebody's going to get knocked down.
10 seconds remaining in the opening round. A round that has been ugly at times, but competitive between Tyler King and Boban Simic. Tyler King, in his lone professional loss in mixed martial arts, it came against Randy Smith. He lost a 5-round unanimous decision. Randy Smith, a fighter out of all the MMA practitioners we've seen on the Northeast make the transition from the cage to the ring, has probably done the best, as he recorded a win over the previously unbeaten Keith Van Kinney in the show in Dorchester last year.
Yeah, Randy actually can box a little bit. He had about a dozen amateur fights before starting with MMA, so he kind of made the MMA transition from boxing. Not as a professional, but as an amateur. And Randy has pretty good basics. He's a big, strong guy. Takes his time, keeps his cool in there. Doesn't mind getting hit so much, and can throw some nice basic punches. Throws a good jab, nice straight punches, and that's what does it. Straight punches in boxing make the difference, and that's often the difference between an MMA fighter and a boxer.
Boban Simic not sitting down in between rounds. Tyler King is sitting down between rounds. George Foreman, I always remember infamously, would not sit in between rounds during the latter stages of his career in phase 2, if you will.
Yeah, George said it took more effort to stand up between rounds than it does to just stay standing.
How did you score round 1, Mark?
I gave it to Simic. I thought he was a little bit more effective, landed some nice body shots and got Tyler's attention.
Dude.
I gave it to Simic based on the effectiveness of that lone body shot that did noticeably discomfort Tyler King. I don't think either fighter was necessarily hurt, but that body shot did get Tyler King's attention, as you noted.
Tyler does not look relaxed there to me. He looks like a guy who is thinking about what he's supposed to do a little bit too much rather than just letting it happen. He looks like he's really concentrating on trying to do things technically proper, whereas Simic is just kind of letting it all hang out. Subsequently, he's a little bit more.
Come on, Boban.
Boban Simic getting a little bit brave, dropping his hands at times. Does land a nice right hand to Tyler King.
Yeah!
Boban Simic drops Tyler King.
Moving left hook,
Holy
King was
shit.
waiting in to throw that right hand squared off.
Timber!
Tyler King says he's okay. First knockdown of the fight, and it's Tyler
Boom.
King's right
Down they were expecting.
falls to the canvas. I think King was going in for a clinch and fell to the canvas, and Boban Simic kind of helped him there.
Tyler King is still on very, very shaky legs in there. Simic needs to just take his time, maybe throw a jab first and set something up, and he'll end this show.
You didn't show up for the win. You didn't show up for the fight. Later.
Couple of looping shots in there again, landing high on King's head. A lot of wrestling in here, Peter.
It's bowling shoe ugly to boxing purists, but it is somewhat
Come on,
expected.
Boban.
King holding, trying to get his legs up from under him.
Yeah!
Simic.
This time it's a left hand that puts King down for the second time in the second round and the second time in this fight.
King is still hurt. He hadn't fully recovered from that first knockdown. He's up and he's still on shaky legs.
Tells referee Eddie Claudio is good. One more knockdown for Simic probably will end this fight.
King holding, trying to last.
You got cut from 4 NFL teams. You're about to get cut
And
from
Simic
the...
sneaks in a shot on the break. Eddie Claudio having his work cut off for him in this opening 4-rounder here in Lowell, Massachusetts tonight, and he's going to wave it off. Boban Simic
Yes.
has a second-round TKO victory as Eddie Claudio stops it with Tyler
Well
King
done.
being knocked down 2 times in the second round. Tyler King is disputing the stoppage. He was on his feet at the time they stopped the bout, but nevertheless, Boban Simic was having a good second frame.
Absolutely.
He still doesn't have his legs out underneath him. It was a good stoppage. You know, Tyler's
I'll
a gutsy,
quit
ballsy
bitching.
guy. He wants to hang in there and keep fighting, but
You look like a
as you can
puppet.
see, he does not have his legs underneath him yet.
And Tyler can take with him the experience of competing in professional boxing. As we talked about, Tyler King is a serious mixed martial arts competitor.
Yeah, he's a...
Wants to see how
Bad
well
fighter,
his
right,
hands
Cor?
will fare in a strictly
You
stand-up
should stop
fight.
bitching, huh?
We saw tonight that he got dropped twice in the second round by Boban Simic and ultimately stopped. We'll go to ring announcer John Vina for the official announcement.
Corey, you like Boban? You like Boban? Huh? Are you a fan of Boban? Huh?
So Boban Simic improves to 2-0 with 2 knockouts as a professional boxer. Tyler King begins his professional boxing career at 0-1.
Well done. Good job, Boban.